Hey guys, evil doesn't wear horns. It doesn't show up in black cloaks with glowing red eyes. No, evil often walks into our lives wearing a friendly smile, a charming laugh, or the disguise of someone who claims they want the best for us. That's what makes it dangerous. It doesn't announce itself. It hides. It seeps into your friendships, your workplace, even your family, slowly draining your energy, eroding your confidence, and leaving behind chaos you can't quite explain. The Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts," meaning people cannot hide what truly drives them, their choices, their behavior, their energy. Eventually, it all bleeds through the mask. But here's the truth. You don't have to wait until it's too late. You can learn to recognize the warning signs. You can guard your peace, protect your energy, and keep your mind free from manipulation. Because as Epictetus reminded us, no man is free who is not master of himself. And nothing strips you of freedom faster than letting someone with dark intentions control your thoughts. So in this journey, I'm going to reveal 10 evident signs that there may be an evil person standing right next to you. Signs you cannot afford to ignore. And I'll show you how to protect yourself using the timeless wisdom of the Stoics, real-world examples, and simple truths you can apply right now. If you're ready, let's begin. Because awareness isn't just power, it's your shield. Sign number 1, constant manipulation. Have you ever trusted someone, only to later realize they were pulling invisible strings behind every interaction? That's the mark of manipulation. It rarely begins with loud demands. Instead, it comes softly through praise that feels good but carries hooks, through subtle suggestions that steer your choices, through little seeds of doubt planted in your mind. Seneca once warned, "He who has many fears also has many things to manipulate." Manipulators feed on fear, fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of not being enough. They study those fears, then use them as levers to gain control. Let me tell you a story. Years ago, I worked with a colleague who, at first, seemed like a supportive friend. In meetings, he praised me openly, telling others how talented I was, how much potential I carried. It felt good. I felt seen. But behind the scenes, he was weaving a different narrative. Quietly, he exaggerated my small mistakes to management, inflating them until I looked unreliable. And when I sensed the inconsistency and confronted him, he smiled calmly and said, "I'm only helping you improve." For a moment, I doubted myself. Was he right? Was I failing? That's how manipulation works. It doesn't just distort reality. It distorts you. It chips away at your confidence until you begin to rely on the manipulator to guide you. As though you can't trust your own judgment, you become entangled in their control, mistaking their poison for medicine. Psychologists call this gaslighting, a tactic where someone makes you question your memory, your decisions, even your sanity. But the Stoics had already diagnosed it centuries ago. Epictetus taught no man is free who is not master of himself. In other words, the moment you allow another person to take over your inner compass, you surrender your freedom. Manipulators know this, and they exploit it. Here's the truth. A virtuous person will never demand your dependence. They will lead you toward independence, toward self-trust, toward growth. If someone in your life constantly insists you need them to succeed, while ignoring your boundaries or dismissing your autonomy, that is not guidance, that is enslavement. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. A manipulator does the opposite. They twist what is right, bend what is true, and convince you that their false version of reality is the only one you should believe. So how do you protect yourself? Not by arguing, not by exhausting yourself trying to prove their lies wrong. The Stoics would tell you clarity and self-control are your shields. Step outside their game. When you refuse to react, when you calmly hold to your truth without feeding their control, you starve their power. Think of manipulation as a hook. Every time you defend yourself against their twisted words, you tug on that hook, driving it deeper. But if you stay calm, if you refuse to bite, the hook falls useless to the ground. I once coached a friend, Maria, who was trapped in a relationship where her partner constantly made her feel less than. If she succeeded at work, he'd tell her she was neglecting him. If she dressed up, he'd claim she wanted attention from others. Over time, she began questioning everything about herself, believing she wasn't enough. When she finally stepped back and asked, "Is this love helping me grow or keeping me small?" that clarity broke the chain. She walked away, reclaiming her autonomy. That's what the Stoics call freedom of the mind. Your task is not to change the manipulator, they thrive in their shadows. Your task is to master yourself so completely that their shadows cannot reach you. Seneca wrote, "The man who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary." Manipulation thrives on imagined fears. What if I lose them? What if they're right? But if you anchor yourself in truth and reason, those fears lose their grip. So remember this: manipulators don't build, they don't nurture, they entangle. And the antidote is simple but powerful: clarity, self-trust, and the courage to step away. Protect your mind, trust your instincts, and never let anyone convince you that your freedom belongs in their hands. Because, in the words of Epictetus, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. And your mind, your choices are always within your control. Sign thereto, a mask of charm. Evil doesn't always reveal itself with harsh words or open hostility. Sometimes, it arrives wrapped in elegance, a dazzling smile, a warm embrace, a voice that feels like silk. Charm, in its truest form, is a beautiful gift. It builds trust, bridges hearts, and creates connection. But when charm becomes a mask, it's no longer a gift, it's a weapon. Epictetus once warned, appearances, no matter how dazzling, often hide the truth beneath. And that is the danger. When charm is used by someone with dark intentions, it becomes a carefully rehearsed performance, designed to disarm you, to lower your guard, to make you believe you found a friend, a mentor, even a soulmate, when in reality, you've stepped onto a stage where every word is scripted, every smile calculated. Let me tell you about Sarah. She had a friend who, at first, seemed extraordinary. He made everyone feel like they were the most important person in the room. Compliments flowed from his mouth with effortless grace. "You're brilliant. I've never met anyone like you. You're going to do amazing things." Sarah felt blessed to have such support. But over time, she noticed something odd. When there was nothing for him to gain, his enthusiasm vanished, and worse, behind closed doors, he would belittle the very people he praised in public. That's when Sarah realized his charm wasn't real. It was a tool, a baited hook designed to reel people in, to get what he wanted: connections, favors, validation. Once the utility was gone, so was his affection. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." You can wear a mask for a while, but your true colors will always seep through. A malicious person can dazzle with charm, but watch how they treat people who cannot benefit them. That's where their soul shows. Psychologists call this impression management, the art of curating how others see you, even if it has nothing to do with who you truly are. For toxic individuals, it's second nature. They thrive on attention, on admiration, on being seen as good while their actions whisper otherwise. So how do you see past the mask? The Stoics would tell you, observe, don't just listen. Words can be dressed up beautifully, but actions are harder to disguise. If someone showers you with praise but gossips cruelly about others, pay attention. If they promise loyalty but vanish when you need them most, believe that. Stoic philosophy reminds us that character is proven in deeds, not declarations. I remember a client, Tom, who fell into the orbit of a charismatic business partner. This man was magnetic. Everyone wanted to be around him. Investors trusted him. Employees adored him. Tom believed he had found the perfect partner, but cracks soon appeared. Deadlines missed. Excuses piled high. Money quietly disappearing from accounts. When Tom confronted him, the man smiled, told him not to worry, and reassured him with more glowing words. It worked until Tom finally compared the man's words with his actions. The contrast was undeniable. The mask of charm had slipped, revealing the rot beneath. The Stoics would say, don't be blinded by appearances. As Seneca put it, words can be beautifully decorated, but only actions reveal the truest picture of character. Genuine kindness shines without performance. It doesn't need polish. It doesn't demand applause. So, here's how you protect yourself. Trust your instincts. If someone's charm makes you feel enchanted yet uneasy, don't dismiss that feeling. That unease is your soul detecting the gap between appearance and reality. Pause. Observe. Ask yourself, do their actions align with their words? Do they give without expecting something in return? Do they treat the powerless with the same respect they show the powerful? Because evil charm is like a stage light. It blinds you for a moment. But once your eyes adjust, you see the shadows it hides. Remember, this authentic people don't need a mask. They don't need rehearsed words or calculated praise. Their presence feels calm, not overwhelming. Their kindness feels steady, not transactional. So when you encounter someone whose charisma feels larger than life, don't be quick to hand them your trust. As Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, the truth never needs to be dressed up. Genuine goodness shines quietly. It doesn't need glitter to be seen. Protect your heart by looking beyond the mask, because the ones who truly care for you won't need to charm you into trusting them. They'll prove themselves through action, over time, in ways that cannot be faked. Sign number 3, lies without conscience. One of the clearest signs that you're in the presence of a truly malicious person is this: they lie. and they lie easily. Not the small, clumsy lies of a child trying to avoid trouble, but calculated, deliberate falsehoods spun with confidence, without hesitation, without conscience. Marcus Aurelius once warned, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." To the Stoics, truth was not optional. It was the foundation of virtue. But to the manipulative, truth is merely an obstacle to get around. Lies are their currency. Think about it. A mistake can be forgiven. A weakness can be understood. But lies are different. Lies are a choice to manipulate reality, to exploit trust, to rewrite the script so that only they remain in control. Let me tell you about Lisa. She had a colleague who always seemed to have the most impressive stories projects he claimed to have led, victories he claimed to have won, experiences that made him sound like a star. At first, Lisa admired him. She even looked up to him. But when she started digging deeper, checking emails, reviewing documents, she realized his grand tales had no foundation. He hadn't led those projects. He hadn't delivered those victories. He was stealing credit for the work of others. And when she confronted him, he didn't flinch. Instead, he deflected, accusing her of misunderstanding the situation, twisting the narrative until Lisa began to doubt her own memory. That's the danger of dealing with a practiced liar. They don't just distort the truth, they distort your confidence in the truth. Psychologists call this gaslighting. The Stoics would call it the erosion of reason, the very faculty that makes us human. Seneca once wrote, "Truth stands firm. Lies require elaborate stories to sustain them." This is the Achilles heel of the liar. To keep their illusions alive, they must layer lie upon lie, like cards stacked on a shaky foundation, and eventually, one card will slip. So how do you protect yourself? The Stoics give us the answer: focus on actions, not words. Marcus Aurelius advised himself daily, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. In other words, judge people not by their claims, but by their conduct. If someone's words are honey sweet but their actions are sour, trust the actions. If their story changes every time you ask for details, trust your observation. When the narrative doesn't match reality, don't let their confidence fool you into silence. Clarity is your shield. I once worked with a young man, David, who was caught in a relationship with someone who lied constantly. She'd tell him she was busy with work while secretly spending time elsewhere. She'd invent stories about her past, shifting details every few weeks. At first, David excused it. Maybe I remembered wrong, he'd tell himself. But over time, the weight of contradictions grew too heavy to ignore. When he finally admitted to himself that her words were false, he broke free. And the moment he walked away, the fog lifted. He realized how much energy he had wasted trying to make sense of a reality that was never real. That's what lies do. They trap you in confusion. They make you question your memory, your judgment, your sanity. But the Stoics would remind you your reason is sacred. Don't surrender it to someone else's falsehoods. Epictetus taught, do not be concerned with what others say or think. Only ask, is it true? Is it right? That simple question cuts through layers of deception. It keeps your focus where it belongs, on reality, not illusion. So here's the lesson: never underestimate the cost of tolerating lies. Every time you excuse dishonesty, you weaken your trust in yourself. Every time you let someone's deception slide, you invite another lie into your space. The Stoics would tell you, walk away, set boundaries, let your peace matter more than their approval. A liar without conscience will never stop lying, not because they can't tell the truth, but because the truth offers them no advantage. And remember, this honesty doesn't need rehearsals. Truth requires no performance. Lies collapse under pressure, but truth stands calmly on its own. So the next time you notice inconsistency in someone's words, don't brush it aside. Pay attention, ask questions, protect your mind, because your peace, your clarity, your reason, these are worth more than any illusion someone tries to sell you. As Marcus Aurelius would remind us, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Don't let someone else's lies poison those thoughts. Hold to the truth. Guard your clarity. And let deceitful people reveal themselves through their contradictions. Sign number 4. Lack of empathy. One of the deepest wounds you can experience in a relationship, whether with a friend, a partner, or even a family member, is realizing that the person standing across from you doesn't actually care how you feel. They might hear your words, but they don't listen. They might see your tears, but they don't respond. They might notice your joy, but instead of celebrating, they dismiss it, or worse, resent it. This is the absence of empathy, and it's one of the clearest signs of a hollow soul. Seneca once observed, "We are members of one great body, planted by nature. We must be helpful to one another, if we would live happily." To the Stoics, empathy wasn't optional, it was natural. Humans were designed to live in community, to share in each other's burdens, to strengthen one another through compassion. So when someone consistently shows indifference to your pain, or contempt for your happiness, they are living against nature itself. Let me tell you about Maria. She confided in a friend during one of the hardest seasons of her life. She had just lost her father. She sat across from this friend, heart raw, searching for comfort. But instead of leaning in, instead of offering understanding, her friend brushed it off. That's life. Everyone loses someone. You'll get over it. Cold, detached, empty. At first, Maria told herself, maybe he just doesn't know what to say. But as months passed, the pattern repeated. When she shared good news about a job promotion, he changed the subject. When she expressed stress about work, he minimized her struggles and turned the conversation back to himself. Over time, Maria realized this wasn't a matter of awkwardness. It was a lack of empathy. Psychologists call this emotional detachment. It's when a person cannot or will not connect with the emotions of others. But often, in toxic people, it's not just indifference, it's exploitation. They withhold empathy when you need it, then feign it when it benefits them. They'll act compassionate if it makes them look good. But when there's nothing to gain, their mask slips, revealing the void underneath. Marcus Aurelius warned, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. A good person doesn't need to explain empathy, they show it. They don't lecture about kindness, they embody it. Now, contrast that with a manipulator. When you're vulnerable, instead of offering comfort, they might twist your words and make the pain about themselves. When you succeed, instead of cheering you on, They might downplay your victory or remind you of your flaws. It's subtle, but it's deadly. Over time, their lack of empathy erodes your confidence, leaving you questioning your worth. I once counseled a young man, Tom, who had been in a friendship like this. Whenever Tom shared his struggles, his friend would reply with, "You think that's bad? Let me tell you what happened to me." Every conversation became a competition. Tom's pain wasn't validated, it was overshadowed. His victories weren't celebrated, they were undermined. Eventually, Tom realized he wasn't in a friendship. He was in a one-sided performance, with his so-called friend as the only audience that mattered. The Stoics would tell us you cannot pour your heart into a void and expect fulfillment. As Epictetus said, associate with those who will make a better man of you. That means surrounding yourself with people who uplift you, who share your joy, who stand with you in your sorrow. People who practice empathy not because it benefits them, but because it is the right thing to do. So how do you protect yourself from the coldness of an unempathetic soul first? By refusing to excuse it. It's tempting to say, they're just busy, they're just distracted, they just don't know how to show it. But empathy is not complicated. Empathy is noticing. Empathy is listening. Empathy is being present. If someone consistently fails to show even the simplest forms of care, believe their actions. Second, set boundaries. Don't keep pouring your energy into someone who refuses to reciprocate. Protect your peace. The Stoics remind us that your time, your energy, your soul are precious. Don't waste them where they are not respected. And third, invest in the relationships that truly matter. Seek out people who celebrate your victories without envy, who share your burdens without complaint, who see your humanity and honor it. Those are the people who will keep you grounded, resilient, alive. Because here's the truth. A lack of empathy isn't just an inconvenience. It's a danger. Without empathy, a person sees others not as humans, but as tools. Without empathy, relationships become transactions. Without empathy, there is no love, only use. So when you see this sign, when you encounter the hollow eyes, the dismissive words, the cold detachment, take it seriously. Protect your soul, preserve your energy, and surround yourself with people who feel deeply, who care honestly, who live in alignment with nature's design for us to share life together. As Seneca reminded us, no man can live happily who has regard to himself alone and transforms everything into a question of his own utility. Empathy is the heartbeat of connection. Without it, all that remains is isolation. So choose wisely, guard your peace, and remember true strength is never cold. It is warm, it is present, it is human. Sign number 5. Hunger for control. One of the most dangerous traits of a toxic or evil person is this: they cannot stand the thought of you being free. They don't want you independent, confident, or grounded in your own judgment. They want control. And not just over what you do, but over how you think, how you feel, even how you see yourself. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." To the Stoics, the seat of true freedom is the mind. But this is exactly where manipulators strike. They know if they can control your thoughts, they can control your entire life. Let me tell you about David. He once had a partner who seemed supportive in the beginning. She would encourage him, give advice, and claim she only wanted the best for him. But slowly, her words began to shift. When David wanted to take on a new project, she told him he wasn't capable. When he wanted to meet friends, she insisted they didn't really care for him. Every decision he tried to make was met with doubt, criticism, or guilt. Over time, David stopped trusting himself. He leaned on her for every choice, believing he wasn't strong enough to lead his own life. That is the essence of control. It's not about helping you, it's about keeping you dependent. Psychologists call this coercive control a pattern of domination where one person uses shame, guilt, or subtle manipulation to undermine your autonomy. It's insidious because it doesn't always look like control. Sometimes it looks like concern. Sometimes it sounds like advice. But beneath the surface, it is an attempt to rewrite your identity so you see yourself as incapable without them. The Stoics would call this slavery not of the body, but of the mind. Epictetus said no man is free who is not master of himself. Freedom isn't about escaping chains. It's about refusing to let someone else dictate your inner world. People with a hunger for control often disguise it as love, mentorship, or protection. But love uplifts, it doesn't shrink. Mentorship empowers, it doesn't cripple. Protection makes you stronger. It doesn't make you doubt yourself. If someone in your life insists that they know what's best for you, while steadily eroding your confidence in your own judgment, you are not in a relationship, you are in a prison. I once counseled a young woman, Sarah, who had a boss notorious for this behavior. He would give her instructions, then criticize her for not taking initiative. He would assign her work, then belittle her efforts. And when she began to doubt herself, he stepped in with, "Don't worry, I'll show you how it's done." It was a cycle designed to make her dependent on him, ensuring she never outgrew his shadow. The Stoic solution. Step back and reclaim your autonomy. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "The quality of your thoughts determines the quality of your life." If your thoughts are constantly filtered through the expectations of someone else, your life is no longer your own. Here's the test, ask yourself, does this person's influence make me stronger or weaker? Do they empower me to make decisions? Or do they strip away my confidence? Do I feel freer in their presence or more trapped? Because those who genuinely care for you will never demand control. They will encourage your independence, even if it means you no longer need them. The truth is, people who hunger for control are deeply insecure. They fear your freedom because your freedom makes them irrelevant. They can't bear to see you stand tall on your own, because it means they can no longer play puppet master. But that is not your problem to fix. Your only responsibility is to guard your freedom. Epictetus put it simply, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control, and other people's approval, their manipulation, their desire for dominance. All of that is beyond your control. What you can control is your clarity, your choices, your boundaries. So, if you see this sign, if you notice someone consistently undermining your confidence, weaving guilt into your decisions, or convincing you that you can't live without their guidance, don't be fooled. That's not love. That's not leadership. That's control. And here's the paradox: the moment you see it clearly, their power begins to dissolve. Control thrives in the dark, but awareness is light. When you recognize their tactics, you take back the keys to your own mind. So remember this: your autonomy is sacred. Your freedom is priceless. Guard it fiercely, because once you reclaim your mind, no one, not even the most manipulative soul, can enslave you again. Sign number 6. Blame games and deflection. When something goes wrong, a person's true character is revealed. Do they own their mistakes? Or do they twist the story until everyone else is at fault but them? One of the clearest signs of an evil or toxic soul is their refusal to take responsibility. Instead of standing firm in truth, they thrive in blame games and deflection. Seneca once observed, "The truth stands firm without justification, while lies require elaborate stories to sustain them." And that's exactly what you'll notice with these individuals. The truth is simple. I made a mistake. I will correct it. But to them, that is unthinkable. Accountability feels like weakness, so they invent excuses, scapegoats, and complex narratives to dodge responsibility. I remember working with a friend on a project. At first, everything seemed fine, but as deadlines approached, cracks began to show. She missed important tasks, overlooked details, and failed to prepare. When the project suffered, I expected her to say, "I messed up. Let's fix this together." Instead, she turned the spotlight on me. "If only you had been more organized. If only you had reminded me. This wouldn't have happened." Her tone was sweet, even framed as constructive feedback, but I felt the weight of guilt land squarely on my shoulders. That is the art of deflection. They turn their failures into your burden, and if you're not careful, you begin to believe it. You start thinking, maybe I really am the problem. Psychologists call this projection shifting responsibility for their own actions onto others. It's a shield toxic people wield with skill, leaving you confused, doubting yourself, and carrying guilt that doesn't belong to you. But the Stoics saw this long ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone can show me that I am mistaken, I will gladly change. For I seek the truth, which never harmed anyone." That's the voice of strength. True character doesn't fear responsibility, it embraces it. Accountability is not a weakness, it's the pathway to growth. Contrast that with the manipulator. When caught, they don't reflect, they deflect. They don't grow, they accuse. And over time, their games erode your confidence, leaving you chained to guilt that was never yours. I once coached Sarah, a woman in a relationship with a partner who mastered this tactic. Whenever he forgot something important, he claimed she hadn't reminded him. Whenever he was cruel, he insisted she was too sensitive. Whenever she expressed her needs, he accused her of being selfish. Slowly, Sarah began to doubt her worth. She found herself apologizing for things she didn't even do. That is the insidious effect of constant blame shifting. It conditions you to carry the weight of another's failures. The Stoics would say, don't play the game. Stay anchored in facts. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, if it is not true, do not say it. If it is not right, do not do it. So when someone hurls blame at you, pause. Ask, is this grounded in truth, or is this a distortion meant to protect their ego by calmly returning to reality? you strip their words of power. Seneca advised, "The truth never calls for anger. The truth is unshaken." If their accusations are false, you don't need rage, you need clarity. You don't need to shout, you need to stand firm. The manipulator thrives on emotional reactions because it distracts from their own failures. But if you respond with calm objectivity, the storm loses its strength. Here's the hard truth: people who consistently refuse accountability reveal their nature over time. They are not committed to truth. They are committed to self-preservation at any cost, even if it means sacrificing you. And the longer you stay entangled, the more you will bleed for mistakes that were never yours. So what should you do? Draw boundaries. When someone tries to deflect blame, don't absorb it. Instead, return responsibility where it belongs. If they continue to evade, step back. Protect your peace. You cannot force integrity into someone who resists it. Epictetus said, "When you blame others for your mistakes, you give away your power. When you take responsibility, you reclaim it." This wisdom works both ways. If you accept blame that isn't yours, you give your power to the manipulator. If you stand in truth, you keep it. Remember, this accountability is the hallmark of strength. Blame games are the refuge of the weak. And while weak souls may try to drag you into their chaos, you are not required to follow. So the next time someone shifts responsibility onto you with unsettling ease, recognize the tactic for what it is: not a reflection of your worth, but a confession of their cowardice. Stand in truth, refuse to carry their burdens, and keep your soul light, unshaken, free. Because in the end, the Stoics remind us, peace belongs to those who live in alignment with truth, and no blame game can touch a soul that stands firmly on that ground. Sign number 7, the pleasure of pain. There's a trait more chilling than manipulation, more unsettling than lies, more corrosive than blame shifting. It's the twisted delight some people take in the suffering of others. This isn't just a lack of empathy, it's its dark inversion. They don't merely ignore pain, they savor it. They don't just fail to support, they feed on the chaos. Epictetus wisely counseled, "Associate with those who will make you better." The flip side is just as true. Avoid those who find joy in pulling you down. For when a person takes pleasure in pain, they reveal the most dangerous kind of emptiness. I once knew someone who seemed harmless at first. She laughed easily, always had a story to share, and seemed to know everyone's business. But then I noticed something disturbing. Whenever a colleague stumbled, she smirked. If someone was criticized in a meeting, she whispered gleefully afterward, "Did you hear that, brutal?" Once, when a coworker was reprimanded by the boss, she chuckled out loud while everyone else sat in uncomfortable silence. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe she was just awkward. Maybe she didn't know how inappropriate it looked. But over time, the pattern was undeniable. Her energy lifted only when others fell. She didn't want growth. She wanted gossip. She didn't build herself up. She fed on others' failures. Psychologists describe this as schadenfreude, pleasure derived from the misfortune of others. But in toxic individuals, it's more than a fleeting reaction. It's a mindset, a worldview. They see life as a ladder, and the only way they can climb is by stepping on the backs of others. Marcus Aurelius warned, The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Imagine the inner world of someone who constantly rejoices in others' misery. Their thoughts are poisoned. Their soul dyed with envy, insecurity, and bitterness. They cannot generate true joy, so they counterfeit it through destruction. But here's the hidden danger when you're around them long enough. Their poison seeps into you. You start doubting whether you can celebrate your victories openly, afraid they'll mock you. You hesitate to share struggles, knowing they'll dismiss or laugh at them. Slowly, you shrink not because of their strength, but because of their sickness. I once coached Lisa, a bright young professional, who had a friend like this. Whenever Lisa achieved something, her friend would respond with sarcasm. "Don't get too proud. It wasn't that big of a deal." When Lisa went through heartbreak, her friend smirked. "Well, maybe now you'll finally learn." These weren't slips of the tongue. They were daggers, delivered with deliberate cruelty. Lisa stayed in the friendship for years, convincing herself maybe she just has a dark sense of humor. But eventually, she realized the truth. Her friend wasn't joking. She was feeding on Lisa's highs and lows, using her pain and joy as fuel for her own emptiness. The Stoics would tell us true joy can never be built on another's suffering. Seneca said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." The one who delights in your adversity isn't learning from their own, they're running from it. They sabotage and mock because deep down, they cannot confront their own failures. So how do you protect yourself? First, recognize the sign early. The sarcastic remarks, the mocking laughter, the subtle smile when someone else falters. Don't excuse it as just their personality. It's a window into their soul. Second, set boundaries, limit your exposure. If possible, remove yourself from their orbit entirely. You don't need to explain why you owe no justification for protecting your peace. And third, seek out people who lift you higher. Surround yourself with those who celebrate your victories with sincerity, who stand with you in your lowest valleys, who remind you that life is not a competition but a shared journey. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." Someone who takes joy in pain has forgotten this privilege. Don't let their blindness dim your vision. Here's the truth: those who laugh at your wounds are confessing their weakness, not revealing your flaws. Their cruelty is not power, it's desperation. And the moment you recognize that, their laughter loses its sting. So remember, joy built on another's suffering is no joy at all. Protect your spirit from those who feed on pain. Keep your heart open, your empathy alive, and your circle full of people who cheer when you rise, not when you fall. Because the Stoics knew life's true strength is found in community, compassion, and courage. And no toxic laughter can silence a soul rooted in virtue. Sign number 8. Isolation as a weapon. One of the most effective tools in the arsenal of a malicious person is not always anger, not always insults, but something far more subtle: isolation. If they can cut you off from your support system, your friends, your family, your community, they gain unchecked access to your mind and emotions. Alone, you become easier to control. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Human beings are made for cooperation, like feet, like hands, Like eyelids, like the rows of the upper and lower teeth, we are designed for connection. Our strength lies in unity, which is why toxic people seek to dismantle it. They know that if they can make you feel alone, you'll start depending on them and them alone. I once had a friend, Maria, who went through this. At first, her new partner seemed deeply caring. He always had advice, always expressed concern for her well-being, but slowly, his words began to isolate her. Your best friend doesn't really treat you well. Your family doesn't understand you like I do. Why do you even waste time with those people? At first, Maria thought he was just being protective, but over time, she noticed her world getting smaller. Invitations from friends became fewer. Calls from family became rarer. And she realized her circle had been deliberately dismantled. One comment at a time. This is no accident. It is a deliberate tactic. Psychologists call it social isolation abuse, a method of making you more dependent by eroding your ties to others. The manipulator subtly sows doubt, plants seeds of mistrust, and slowly convinces you that they are the only one who truly cares. It's not love, it's not concern, it's control, dressed as devotion. Epictetus warned the good man is invincible, for he lives not for himself, but for the common good. The flip side is that someone who aims to isolate you is not living for the good at all. They seek power, not partnership. They weaken your foundation by stripping away the people who would remind you of your worth. I once counseled Tom, who had a boss notorious for this tactic. Whenever Tom collaborated well with colleagues, the boss would whisper, "They don't really like you. They're just using you." Over time, Tom pulled back, doubting every connection. The boss became his only source of validation. That was exactly the point. Cut off the support. Monopolize the influence. But the Stoics give us a way to fight back. First, by remembering our true nature. Seneca reminded us we are born for mutual assistance. To live cut off from others is to live against nature. If someone is trying to shrink your circle, they are dragging you away from your natural strength. Second, trust your instincts. If a relationship consistently makes you feel lonelier, that is not love. If someone's care creates distance between you and the people who matter most, that is not protection, it is possession. And third, actively safeguard your connections. Marcus Aurelius said, "When you wish to delight yourself, think of the virtues of those around you. Genuine friends, loving family, supportive mentors. These are not distractions, they are anchors. They keep you grounded when the storms of life rage. Toxic people know this, which is why they aim to cut the ropes. Don't let them." Lisa, another friend I coached, discovered this the hard way. Over time, her partner had pulled her away from everyone who once mattered. When she finally broke free, she described it like waking up from a dream. "I forgot who I was," she said, "because I only had his voice in my ear." That is the danger of isolation. It doesn't just strip away your support, it erodes your sense of self. So how do you resist? By choosing connection over control. By reaching back out to those who love you. By refusing to believe the whispers that pit you against the people who've stood by you longest. By remembering that true care never seeks to sever ties, it seeks to strengthen them. The Stoics knew that the fortress of the soul is not built alone. It is strengthened by community, by fellowship, by shared courage. If someone is trying to tear that down, see it for what it is, a tactic of domination. So the next time you hear words like, "They don't really care about you," or "I'm the only one who understands you," pause, ask yourself, do these words make me more free or less? Do they bring me closer to others or further away? Because anyone who seeks to isolate you is not trying to protect you. They are trying to possess you. Remember this. Your strength is not found in a single voice that cages you, but in the chorus of people who truly love and support you. Protect those bonds. Guard those connections. Because unity is resilience, and no manipulator can control a soul that stands surrounded by true allies. Sign number 9. Jealousy in disguise. Jealousy is one of the most corrosive emotions in the human heart. On the surface, it may look harmless, disguised as concern, framed as helpful advice, or hidden behind false compliments. But beneath that mask, jealousy is poison. And when someone in your life secretly resents your growth, their words will reveal it slowly, subtly, but unmistakably. Seneca once warned envy is the ulcer of the soul. For the Stoics, envy wasn't just an unpleasant feeling, it was a disease of the spirit, eating away at joy and integrity. And those infected often try to spread the disease to others. Let me share the story of Lisa. She had a friend who always seemed supportive, always asking about her projects, always quick with feedback. When Lisa landed a big promotion, her friend said, "Wow, that's great. But now the pressure is really on you to prove yourself." When Lisa shared her excitement about finishing a marathon, her friend replied, "Impressive. Though honestly, I heard others finished with better times." At first, Lisa took these comments as constructive criticism, but over time, she noticed the pattern. Every celebration was cut short. Every victory was shadowed by a subtle reminder you're not enough. That is jealousy in disguise. It cloaks itself in concern, but exists only to chip away at your confidence. Psychologists describe this as covert envy, a form of jealousy that hides behind politeness, offering backhanded compliments or veiled criticism. Unlike open hostility, covert envy works slowly, eroding your sense of accomplishment until you begin doubting yourself. Marcus Aurelius offered the antidote. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. If you allow someone's jealousy to plant seeds of doubt in your mind, their shadows will darken your thoughts. But if you recognize envy for what it is, you can protect your joy. I once mentored Tom, a musician who struggled with this exact dynamic. He had a bandmate who always praised him in public but undermined him in private. After every performance, the bandmate would say things like, "Great job tonight, but you really should work on your timing." People were talking about it. Tom would go home, questioning himself, replaying the night over and over. Eventually, he realized there was no audience whispering about him, only the voice of envy disguised as concern. The Stoics would remind us a virtuous person celebrates the success of others. Epictetus said he is a wise man who does not grieve for the things he has not, but rejoices for those which he has. By this measure, jealousy reveals not only malice but foolishness. A jealous person cannot see abundance, they see only lack. And they project that emptiness onto you. So how do you protect yourself first? Trust your instincts. If praise leaves you feeling smaller, not larger, Examine the intent behind it. Genuine compliments build confidence. Envious ones leave a residue of doubt. Second, observe the pattern. A jealous person rarely slips just once. Their words will follow a rhythm: uplift, then undermine, smile, then sting. If every achievement is met with a subtle jab, you are dealing with envy, not friendship. And third, refuse to dim your light. One of the cruelest effects of jealousy is that it tempts you to shrink, to hide your success so others won't feel threatened. But Marcus Aurelius reminded us, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. It is not right to bury your gifts. It is not true that your achievements make you less worthy of love. Do not let envy rewrite your story. I recall Sarah, a young entrepreneur who struggled with this in her circle of friends. Every time she hit a milestone, one friend would say, "That's amazing, but don't get too comfortable. Things can change fast." For years, Sarah downplayed her success, afraid of making her friend uncomfortable. Then one day, she realized my joy is not arrogance, and their jealousy is not my burden. She began celebrating openly again, surrounding herself with people who clapped without hesitation, and her confidence soared. Here's the truth. Jealousy is never about you, it's about them. It's a mirror reflecting their insecurities, their lack of fulfillment, their fear of being left behind. You cannot cure it for them, but you can protect yourself from absorbing it. So when you see this sign, when you notice compliments laced with doubt, when advice always seems to pull you down instead of lifting you up, step back. Recognize it as envy, not wisdom. Surround yourself with those who rejoice in your joy, who applaud without comparison, who remind you that your growth doesn't diminish theirs. Because true friends, true partners, true allies, they don't fear your light. They shine with you. And as Seneca said, it is the power of the mind to be unconquerable. Don't let jealousy disguise itself as care and conquer your confidence. Stand firm, shine brightly, and remember your success is not a threat, it's a testament. Sign, yours 10, the unrepentant heart. Perhaps the clearest sign of an evil or toxic person is this: they do wrong, but they never admit it. They wound others, but they never apologize. They create chaos, but they never take responsibility. Instead, they justify, deflect, and double down. Their heart is unrepentant. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." A good man doesn't cling to excuses, he confronts his flaws. A good woman doesn't run from her mistakes, she learns from them. But those with unrepentant hearts live in denial. They see confession as weakness, accountability as humiliation, and change as surrender. So they never grow. I remember working alongside a man named Paul. He was talented, no doubt, but he had a habit of undermining others, often taking credit for their work or throwing them under the bus when things went wrong. One day, his mistake cost the company a client. Instead of admitting fault, he spun a story that painted everyone else as incompetent. He even accused his colleagues of sabotaging him. What stunned me wasn't just the lie, it was the complete absence of remorse. To him, admitting a mistake was unthinkable. He carried himself as if the world owed him forgiveness without him ever lifting a finger. That is the danger of the unrepentant heart. It rejects the possibility of growth. Psychologists call this narcissistic defense, a refusal to acknowledge wrongdoing because it threatens one's fragile sense of self. But the Stoics would call it a sickness of the soul. Epictetus said it is impossible for a man to begin to learn what he thinks he already knows. If someone refuses to see their fault, they also refuse the chance to improve. Contrast this with the Stoic path. To the Stoics, admitting mistakes is not shameful, it is noble. Seneca taught to err is human, but to persist in error is diabolical. Mistakes are not the problem. The refusal to correct them is. True strength lies in reflection, in the humility to say I was wrong, I will do better. But those with unrepentant hearts twist reality to avoid that humility. When confronted, they minimize the harm. It wasn't that bad. Or they justify I had no choice. Or they retaliate, you're overreacting. Anything to avoid the mirror of accountability. I once counseled Maria, who'd been in a long-term relationship with someone like this. Every time he hurt her through harsh words, neglect, or betrayal, he found a way to excuse it. If you weren't so sensitive, I wouldn't have said that. Everyone makes mistakes. Stop acting like you're perfect. Not once did he simply say, I was wrong. Over the years, Maria realized the futility of waiting for an apology that would never come. She broke free, understanding that some hearts are so hardened they will never change. The Stoics would tell us don't tie your peace to someone else's repentance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, when you wake up in the morning, remind yourself the people you deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. But I cannot be harmed by any of them. In other words, expect imperfection, but protect your peace regardless. So how do you handle the unrepentant heart first? By recognizing it. If someone consistently refuses accountability, don't wait for the apology that never comes. Don't live in the illusion that one day they will wake up different. Second, by setting boundaries. Protect your energy from those who drain it with constant justification. You cannot force growth on someone who resists it. And third, by choosing better company. Surround yourself with those who practice humility, who are willing to admit when they fall short, who see mistakes as opportunities to become stronger. Because here's the truth. An unrepentant person will repeat the same harm again and again, not because they cannot change, but because they refuse to. And in their refusal, they expose who they truly are. But you are not bound by their choices. You are free to step away, to guard your soul, to align yourself with those who embody virtue, rather than deny it. Marcus Aurelius gave us this compass. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Don't mirror their stubbornness. Don't let their hardness infect you. Instead, choose growth, choose humility, choose repentance when you falter, and in doing so, you rise above those who refuse it. So when you encounter this sign, when you see the unrepentant heart, take it for what it is, not a challenge for you to fix, but a warning for you to walk away. Because true strength is not found in denial. It is found in the courage to admit, to correct, and to grow. And so, we've walked through 10 evident signs, 10 shadows that reveal when an evil heart lingers close to you. Perhaps some of these patterns felt uncomfortably familiar. Perhaps you recognized faces, moments, conversations in your own life. If so, take comfort in this. Awareness itself is protection. Once you see clearly, you are no longer trapped. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. That strength is already within you. No matter who surrounds you, no matter what masks they wear, your freedom rests in your own clarity, your own choices, your own boundaries. So breathe deeply. Release the weight of their games, their lies, their shadows. You are not theirs to control. You belong to yourself. And if tonight's journey gave you insight, let that wisdom stay with you. Whisper it back to yourself in moments of doubt. I see the signs. I protect my peace. If you feel called, you may like, you may subscribe channel, you may even share your reflections below comment, but only if it truly serves you. Now, rest easy. You are safe. You are strong. You are free. Good night. Sweet dreams.